Chapter 43. I felt empty and without hope as I related the news to Shannon. We stood in her apartment as I felt that same feeling of defeat I did when I was younger, being bullied. There was no way out that I could see now besides Shannon and I walking into a trap. Shannon took it all in stride, her muscular arms crossed over her chest, just listening and nodding. When I finished, I thought for sure she had finally gone off the deep end. She was just standing there, smiling. "Shannon?" I asked, confused. "I think you may not have just understood what I'm saying here. I know you don't like Evan, but—" "No, it's not that," Shannon interrupted, waving away the idea. "John, don't you see this is good? This is our opportunity to put what we've learned to use and kill the Count." I stared at her, blinking, wondering exactly how suicidal she was. "We've been training for 2 days, I said, holding up 2 fingers on my right hand. 2 days, Shannon! You heard what they said. The Count is way more powerful than any vampire we've come across yet. Bloodstone almost killed me. On top of that, we don't have any more light grenades or snuff. Man, I could really go for some more snuff right about now." "Easy, druggie," Shannon warned. "We may not have that, but we have our weapons, and that axe of yours is a force to be reckoned with." "I feel like we really should get Mrs. Grundy or Michael or even Soap involved," I said, beginning my pacing again. "I mean, how would Victor know we contacted them? Are they watching us now? Do they have our phones tapped?" Shannon shrugged. "I don't know, but I wouldn't risk it." Odin walked around the corner, nearly giving me a heart attack. The hellhound grinned with his tongue falling out the side of his mouth. Shannon didn't seem fazed. "When did he get here?" I asked. "A few minutes before you," Shannon shrugged. "He still shies away when I try to pet him, but he wanted to hang out, I guess. I heard him scratching at the door. He's just been in here licking himself." My mind transitioned from the near heart attack I had from seeing Odin, back to a way to save Evan. As confident as Shannon seemed, I knew the odds of us walking out of there alive was nil. Who knew how many vampires the Count had in there? Odin padded over to sit right in front of me. He looked at me, then at the door, and back at me again. "I don't know what you want, buddy," I told the wolf dog. "Do you need to use the restroom? Do you need out?" Odin panted and blinked at me a few times. He stared at my pocket where my cell phone sat, then lowered to the floor. He placed his paws over his head and neck area, shimmying backward as if he were trying to remove the leather collar around his neck. "What's your hellhound doing?" Shannon wondered with a raised eyebrow. "This is weird. Is he trying to take his collar off?" "He's not my hellhound," I said, sounding like Mrs. Grundy in my own ears. "Maybe he wants his collar off." Odin got up, rolling his eyes, and went to the kitchen. He jumped, placing his 2 front paws on Shannon's counter, and picked up a pen. He came back and dropped it at my feet. Light bulbs flashed in my mind as I realized what the hellhound was saying. "Oh, good boy, Odin," I said, reaching out to ruffle his ears. Odin backed out of reach before I could touch him. Memories of what Mrs. Grundy said about Odin being neglected before reminded me of his emotional scars. "Okay, we're not there yet," I said, picking up the pen. "You can send a message to Mrs. Grundy using Odin," Shannon said, nodding in understanding. "I bet we could put it in his collar. With all the fur, if someone was watching our apartment, they wouldn't be able to tell there was a note in there." Shannon didn't wait for me to agree or not. She opened a drawer in her kitchen and pulled out a white pad of paper. I wrote a quick note to Mrs. Grundy, taking as much care as I could when working on my handwriting to ensure it would be legible. The note read, "The Count has Evan. Shannon and I are going after him tonight at sundown at V Model Management, top floor. He said if we bring or tell anyone else, they'll kill Evan. Please follow carefully. Also, this is John in case there's any confusion. Hope you have a great day, Jonny Hunter." "Let me see that," Shannon said before I had a chance to fold the letter and stick it under Odin's collar. I was so used to texting, even that short time writing left my hand cramping. I flexed my fingers as Shannon shook her head.
I can barely read this. Seriously, your penmanship is horrible. It's like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics.
Shannon didn't look up from the note, but reached for the pen in my hand.
Give me the pen and I'll make it legible.
Odin and I looked at one another. I shrugged and he licked his lips and panted. Shannon finished a moment later with her tongue sticking out the side of her mouth, a few last pen marks on the paper.
There we go,
Shannon said, folding the paper and placing it securely in Odin's collar. It occurred to me then that was the closest the hellhound had gotten to either one of us petting him. I'm not sure what abuse the animal had endured at the hands of its previous owner, but my blood boiled just thinking about it. Odin looked uncomfortable, but managed not to run away as Shannon finished. All right, buddy, I addressed the hellhound, opening the door for him. I'm not sure if you can understand me, but try not to look too obvious going to Mrs. Grundy's house. If they are watching us, they'll see you leave this apartment. Maybe do a few rounds, pee on some stuff or something. Odin looked at me, and I swore he rolled his eyes before heading out. I closed the door right behind him. My mind was already working on what needed to be done next. I looked at the time on my phone, which I realized didn't really mean much, since I had no idea when the sun was going to set.
We have a few hours to get ready, Shannon said, tapping her pointer finger against her chin thoughtfully. We should use that time to prepare.
I like that idea, but prepare how exactly? I asked, shaking my head. We don't know how many vampires Victor is going to bring. We're for sure walking into a trap. They're not going to let any of us out of there alive. Shannon stopped tapping her chin and looked over at me with a frown.
If you don't think we're going to get out of there alive, why would you go in the first place?
Evan's my friend, I answered matter-of-factly.
Most people have lots of friends, Shannon shrugged.
I don't, I responded quicker than I could think. The words just came out and I knew they were nothing but the truth.
Tragic, Shannon said, waving me to follow her to the room I knew was filled with weapons. Well, come on, Cinderella. We have a ball to get ready for.
I followed Shannon into her armament chamber, amazed once more of how many weapons and how much ammunition she could pack into a single room. Guns of all shapes and sizes lined the walls, with ammunition boxes on the floor in the corners. Bladed weapons were in one section, while medical supplies and the like were stationed in a glass cabinet marked with a red cross. Shannon was already busy taking items off the walls that included her katana, body armor, and handguns. She loaded up my arms as she talked.
The biggest thing we have going for us right now is that last time we had to be careful because we weren't sure who was human and who was a vampire. This time around, we can bring the big guns because everyone's going to be out to suck our blood.
That's one way to look at it, I said, huffing as Shannon stacked something that looked like a shotgun on steroids into my arms. Shannon, the only reason I told you about this is because I knew you'd be pissed if I went without you and would probably never talk to me again.
You got that right, Shannon agreed, checking a magazine before placing it on the growing mound of death in my arms. You did the right thing. If you tried to leave without me, I would have caught you anyway. I put a tracker on your phone.
Ha ha, good one, I answered. Shannon just blinked at me a few times. You're kidding, right? I asked. I mean, you're not really tracking my phone, are you? That's a serious invasion of privacy.
Maybe I am, and maybe I am, Shannon said without showing the slightest bit of regret. Hey, don't look so down. It's your lucky day. I'm going to let you shoot a gun this time.
My eyes lit up like it was Christmas. Now you're talking, I cheered, following her into the front room where I gently laid down my arms full of boom. I've always wanted one of the machine guns like in Predator. You know, keep my finger on the trigger and yell as loud as you can.
I think that was Point Break, Shannon said, laying out the weapons in front of us in the family room.
She picked up some kind of large machine gun and aimed down the sights. Oh, nice, that's perfect for me, I said, reaching for the weapon.
No, Shannon said, bringing the weapon closer to her chest. Marley's mine. You need something a little more accident-proof. Here.
Shannon reached for a revolver and handed it to me. The weapon wasn't exactly what I was expecting. It was a behemoth as far as revolvers went, but I wanted something with 100-round magazines or even some kind of minigun.
It's not the size that counts, Shannon said, beginning to instruct me on how to use the weapon. This is a Smith & Wesson 500 Magnum. I've designed the rounds myself to carry a little extra bang. Check the barrel.
The weapon itself was no joke. The handgun was heavy. Shannon was right. Around the barrel was some kind of added circle or mount.
The most powerful UV light money can buy, Shannon explained. Go ahead, give it a try.
The extra barrel around the weapon made the thing look like some kind of futuristic weapon. Next to the trigger guard, there was a switch. I flicked the thing, and a beam of circular light shot out so bright I almost blinded myself just looking at it.
Hey, be careful where you point that thing, Shannon said, dancing out of the way. That light's no joke. I aimed it at a piece of paper for a few seconds, and the paper heated up so much it started burning.
I could see what she was talking about. Just moving the weapon around the room, the intense white light followed along like a laser. You think this'll kill a vampire? I asked. And what do I do after I run out of ammo?
That's what speed loaders are for. You should probably practice reloading on the move before we go. I'm not sure if it'll kill a vampire for sure, but I am sure that when you put the UV light and a round from that weapon in them, they're not getting up anytime soon, especially if you hit them in the head.
Noted, I said, feeling the excitement and the weight of the moment at once. The rest of the afternoon was spent going over our battle plan, practicing dry-firing my weapon, reloading with the speed loader, and Shannon doing her best to let me know what I could anticipate when I fired the hand cannon. We drilled for hours, ate, tried to rest, but we were too amped up. In the back of my mind, I prayed Evan was still all right and that Odin had made it to Mrs. Grundy.